Hello, everybody. How are you? How are things? How are you getting on? We hope you had a great day outside. Trying to get this thing going, and like always, it's lastminute.com with me, and things tend to break down. So bear with us. We are live. We are going ahead with it. We will have loads of time for comments and questions and all things nice. But I am going to be joined by the beautiful Amy Weidner. She's after making it all the way from Bantry, all the way to Berlin. So we're going to ask her how she managed to get that far. And we'd like to introduce to Cabin Fever, Amy. How are you? How you doing?
Hi.
Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Fantastic. That was the first time this has gone so smoothly. How's life? How's things?
Yeah, good. How are you doing?
Grand. Making noise like always. That's all I'm doing is making loads and loads of noise.
I like your backdrop. It's very saucy.
Very saucy. Yeah, very saucy. Old curtains and uplights. It's amazing what you can do. Circus. Right, so Amy, let's go back. You managed to make it all the way from Bantry to Berlin. How did you manage that?
Yes. Well, so I moved to Berlin last August, actually. I was living in London just before that. And I had spent like 6 years in London and I loved it. And I guess the bulk of my career happened in London. And I just kind of got a little bit sick of the rat race. I just felt like I needed a bit of a break from it. And I turned 30 last year and I decided to go on a retreat. And on the retreat, it was like a retreat for women, and it was like fitness, but also kind of, it was a little bit spiritual as well. And I would recommend anyone to do that, actually. And it was basically on that I met a couple of girls from Berlin, and I met a few really interesting people that I just thought these girls are great. And then they kind of convinced me, and I think they just got me at a particularly open-minded and maybe vulnerable time when I just thought, you know what, I always had this block about moving there, but I had no idea. I never even thought about going to Berlin, but I had this block about leaving London and moving somewhere else, because I thought I'm probably a bit old now to be moving around again, and
scary 30s.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, no, I'm in London and I'm really rooted here and all my friends are here. And then actually, the more I really thought about it, and they planted the seed, and then it kind of manifested. And then I looked at jobs because I'm a recruiter. There's a lot of, I don't speak German. There's a lot of English speaking jobs in Berlin. So I had a look online. And that was it. Basically, within 2 or 3 months, I had moved my life there. And yeah, it definitely made me think. I had thought about leaving London for a while. And I do think maybe someday I could end up back in London. But it was such a nice, welcome change. And it wasn't like that smooth sailing. But yeah, now I'm back in Bantry now, but I'm super happy that I was able to move there, because it's just a really amazing city. It's very open. It's full of some, incredible people from all over. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up there, in a bit of a long version.
It wasn't that long. It was fairly quick. You don't have to worry about it. I've dealt with longer stories than that, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Recruiting, right. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, right? How did you start in recruiting?
Great question. So my idea of recruiting was coaching people and helping people to find a job. And when I first started in recruiting, I a lot of people fall into it. I very intentionally got into it. First of all, I lived for 2 years in Melbourne. I think I was maybe 21, 22 when I moved to Melbourne. And I went for a few interviews, and there was some visa restrictions, so I couldn't actually get into it over there. But I did a lot of interviews, and I felt like I knew a lot about it. So then eventually when I moved to London, I got a job relatively easily, but I had done heaps of interviews in Melbourne. And I joined this really nice company called Ambition in London. And I got into it through just, I guess, kind of it was not that easy in terms of I had to do quite a few interviews and get myself really prepared as an interviewee. But I started entry level and started in a company in London because as I said, it was something to me that was super interesting, actually, the thought of the interview process and how you assess people, and how, on the flip side, how you can maybe help people secure a role. And I find all of that really fascinating. And then, yeah, I started at this company and I really enjoyed it. It was very salesy, a lot more salesy than I had hoped for. And in agency recruiting, I don't know, a lot of people maybe don't know the difference. What I do now is I work for one company and I recruit just for them. So I'm almost like with their internal HR recruiting team. And before I worked for an agency where we had like a portfolio of clients and we would work for the clients, but they're also working with lots of other agencies and it's super salesy. And I witnessed a lot of stuff that I really didn't kind of like or agree with. And just, it was more about the numbers and the sales over the people and their well-being and their kind of like, yeah, and putting the people first. So then I left agency and went to internal recruiting probably like maybe 3 years ago now. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey and I've worked at a couple of different companies and I've learned a lot and I still really love it. And I can probably, to be honest, see myself in this sort of profession for a long time, I would hope.
So you were saying there that it's not the traditional type headhunting that used to be from years ago. There, as in to them, or you're trying to take on people. Like recruitment of, like by definition, it would be imagining you're trying to hire people. But would you be like the type of to try and help people get the jobs and recruit them that way? Or do you go literally, are you given by your company, right, we need three employees and you're sent off to go look for them? That type of thing?
Yeah, that was an agency for sure. That was, you'd have like your clients, you'd have a portfolio of clients and they would say, you know, we need like 3 people for this particular team, this sort of person. You go and you look for them. So you do have like you have relationships with different candidates. So you look at it per industry. So for me, I worked in marketing. So I had like a pool of candidates within marketing that I had relationships with, and then you put them forward for the jobs that open. It sounds super confusing when people aren't in it, but it's yeah, that's why it's salesy, because these people are also registered with other agencies, and of course it's very relationship focused, but it's also very kind of, it's like a bit of like survival of the fittest, and it's a bit like super competitive, and I got there first, and yeah, it can be a little bit like that. But then that's like contingent recruitment. And then you have executive search firms, which is much more focused on, oh, okay, this company, let's say Netflix, need a CEO or need someone super senior. Maybe they need like a VP of something or other. Then they will hire an executive search firm and they will charge them a lot of money, but they will very, very like slowly and carefully find that person, and it takes sometimes a year to find someone at that level. But it takes a lot of, you know, they approach them and they have to be super thoughtful, and that's more of like the search part of it. So yeah.
So it's fun, exciting.
Yeah. You know what? I had the most amazing time in London, and it was like definitely probably some of the best years of my life. And the thing is, when you work with other recruiters, they're super outgoing, and everyone is like, yeah, just very outgoing, and it was, yeah, a very fun time. And it's extremely satisfying when you place someone in a job and they're so happy, and sometimes you end up being the one to negotiate them a really good salary, and that is like unbelievably rewarding. Like, it's amazing. And also, is as an internal recruiter, when you find someone that, you know, like someone especially who's maybe not the conventional sort of CV, like maybe they're not from a competitor, or maybe they're someone like that, I don't know, you just saw on LinkedIn and you contacted them and you just felt something about their profile was like standing out to you, and then they end up getting the job and they work out really well. Like that, like seeing people through that journey is so satisfying and just so rewarding, honestly.
That must be kind of cool though, because it's sort of like hitting gold. Then if they like the job and you like getting it to them, it's fantastic. It has to be rewarding on that front. Like, is you can still have all the right qualifications but not be right for the job.
Yeah,
that can be very hard as well. Like you might have everything you want for it, and it just might work out for you. And there's a lot of heartache over that too, you know. Like you might think you might be able for the job, but then when you actually get to the real life of the job, you're like, oh my God, I'm well in over my head here.
Yeah, that's really true. And there's also this thing of, you know, there's lots of variables for companies when they want to hire. And for my company, for an example, which is something that I was so surprised by, like in a good way, that the final interview was an interview about social justice. And you are interviewed. So I had to go into an interview not knowing anything about what I obviously knew we were going to talk about like social justice, but we are assessed on the sort of person that we are and how we view the world and how we view the marginalized. And to find a company like that for me was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But, you know, every company has their own idea of the sort of person they want, not just on paper, not just their background, but their cultural fit. So, you know, my company before that, when, you know, I was hiring salespeople, there was this very clear kind of, there were these kind of attributes that we looked for. And it really, you know, your experience, yes, was important, but it really was down to how you came across as a person in the interview. And we weighed it on like your current, you know, what experience you have, and also what we can see you like that you are kind of able to achieve in terms of like, are you hungry to learn? Are you coachable? All of these different things. And I think like it's really important to take these things into consideration, because if we're just looking at, you know, what you've done, that kind of rules people out. I think it's really good to have a bit of a balance and to not just look at the direct experience. It's good to understand someone can have like years of experience doing something, and that's absolutely great and that's so invaluable. But also, is this person willing to, are they open to being given feedback? Are they coachable, as I said before? Like those things are super important. And that is what everyone always wonders, like, what do people really look for in an interview? What are recruiters looking for? It's those sorts of attributes and characteristics of people.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges, really. Like, you know, you can have everything you need on paper, but if you come across a dickhead, they're not really going to hire you. Like, you know what I mean? You have to be the right fit. You have to come out with the right personality. You kind of have to have everything. But if I was looking, no, I've hired a few people, but experience doesn't, you can have the best experience in the world, but still it depends on the person as well, and how flexible they are, how they hold themselves, how they look at different things in life. Like everything's not going to be black and white. Like you're not going to go into any job situation and say, well, this is A and B and this is what's going to happen forever. That's not going to happen. That's not life. Life throws curveballs all the time, and it's always great to have an employee that will bounce with a curveball or bend if they have to. You know what I mean? To way the society or situations get them. There's no point being, like, as the old saying goes, even the stiffest tree falls in the wind. You know what I mean? So like, you have to be able to bend, you have to be able to mold, you have to be able to be quick thinking and stuff like that. Now, for me as an employer, them type of things are massive for me, huge, because like I said, you might get hired for one job, but it could entail 400 jobs in the one thing. And like, all employers are looking kind of for the overall package rather than being great at one.
Yeah, that's true. And just to like, I guess, elaborate a little bit on that, because this is a really interesting subject. And this is something that I wish I could kind of like get this out there to everyone, because I have witnessed some.
You now have it. You have like, your chance. Yeah. You're famous.
I'm famous. Yes. I've witnessed.
Forget the Late Late Show. This is it. This is the peak now. Forget the Late Late Show.
This is my moment to shine. No, I've witnessed some really bad interviews. I've interviewed probably like hundreds of people at this stage. And okay, so there's a few things I want to say about this. So the first thing is, I didn't go to university. I got like 200 and something points in my leaving cert. I was like a joke in school. There was a couple of teachers that definitely really liked me and believed in me. Maybe one or two. Miss O'Grady, God rest her soul, she was amazing. She really, really believed in me. And I think, like, honestly, having those one or two teachers that you totally, even though she was my maths teacher and I was like terrible at math, I had to get grinds and I was doing past math and everything. So having someone that you just know really, really believes in you is super important. And what I started doing, so I didn't go to university. I did like a fashion design course in college of Cotton. I very quickly was like, oh my God, pattern drafting. Oh my God, sewing. Like, no, my sewing teacher, whatever, I can't remember her name at the time, used to come over to me and just be like, this it's a shit show. What are you doing? So like I definitely like the education route, like wasn't so linear for me.
Yeah.
And in recruitment, luckily you don't actually really need to have like a heavy educational background to get into it. But of course, in order to succeed in it, you need to have, you know, very thick skin, and you need to be, as you said, like very agile, and you need to be able to spin a lot of things at the same time, and I learned more in my first few years of recruiting than I don't know, probably have ever learned. But I think just to your point on, you know, just change, you know, in so many jobs, there's so many things that can change. And what interviewers look for is, and they often will ask questions around this, like, can you give me an example of a time that you were, you know, maybe you were trying to close a sale with a client and something went wrong, or something like that, where you had to kind of change direction, or maybe you were on a project and things didn't go according to plan, whatever. So people will often ask questions like that because they want to figure out your thought process and how you navigate change and how you can pivot, and also how you can kind of remain calm. And the thing is, change is the only thing that's very constant, and change is something that we all have to kind of be comfortable with, because it's something that's going to happen in every company. In every company I've worked at, there's been a lot of change, and it's just important to keep an open mind. And there's this saying, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, and I'm definitely going to mess it up now, but it's kind of, it's basically like, when things are really going bad, that's when you see the employee's true like side, or true like ability to cope, is when things are like going really bad. And I guess it's applicable to every part of life, is, you know, when the shit hits the fan, how we react.
I was about to say that, when shit hits the fan, who comes out the cleanest? That was going to be my way of saying it.
yeah, exactly. But, you know, and for me, I think that what got me into these companies, and what got me like, I don't know, like the fact that I didn't have a degree, and when I was in London, I was up against people who had really good academics, and I started reading books, and I started reading self-help books, and at the beginning I got mocked by everyone. But I've read like so many self-help books, and so many books about how to win friends and influence people is one of my favorite books of all time, because it's the most incredible book, and it helps you really be able to connect with other people and really understand them. Another one I read was The Slight Edge. My new favorite is Atomic Habits. I read all of these books, and they teach me so much about how to conduct myself in my working life, the things I should be focusing on. They've literally changed my life, like reading different books in this, like all about mindset and everything. And yeah, that's been a huge learning curve. And it is what you have on paper. It is your experience. Of course, that matters, but it's actually more about you as an individual and what you're willing to do, and how open, I can't stress this enough as well, how open you are to receiving feedback from other people, and to being told that's not a good way of doing things. I think you should consider doing it this way. So many people get so defensive, but you just have to remain calm. It's not nice to hear negative feedback, but you just take it on, and you take it on board, and you move on from it, and you learn from it, and you think about it and reflect on it, and think about how you can, you know, use that to better yourself.
Yeah, you have to. It's the only way you learn as well. If you like, learning goes both ways. As my old fella says, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so use 2 of them rather than the 1. Do you know what I mean? So the reason God gave you 2 ears is so you could listen twice as much. No, it never did me any good, but look, we're trying to get through anyway.
No, but that's so true. And like, I think we often talk to, or we listen to respond. Yeah. And I think like listening, and I've had some constructive feedback given to me, and I've been like, oh, that really hurt, or that made me, of course, because we're human beings, and we don't want to, our primal instincts are like, oh, we don't want to like be removed from the pack, or we don't want to have the pack turn their backs on us, because then we'll get eaten by a bear. But actually, like in this current way of life, we can accept it. And it's actually like a bit of gift feedback, because not everyone is open to, you know, like not everyone will give it, but I would actually seek it out. Like I would ask. And I wrote one of my blogs, I don't know when it was, maybe a month or 2 ago, about this whole coronavirus situation. And one of the things I said at the end of one of the posts was basically make sure you check yourself and make sure that you are really reflecting on how you are to be around in this crisis. And I know so many people are like in lockdown with their other halves and are their kids, and they're, you know, they might be in small apartments or whatever, and you're having to really be around this one other person or these few other people so much for so much time, and it's like crazy. But I just think if you can really check yourself and think like, how am I to be around? What sort of person am I to be in their company? I think that also is really important and will go a long way and will definitely improve your relationship with the other person.
Definitely. If you got to fix yourself before you can fix anybody else.
Yeah, a bit of self-reflection, you know?
Yeah, there's a guy there now, and for the life of me, I'm not good. It's come to me straight away like that. Jordan Peterson. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I know you're a bit of a fan of him. I have mixed
feelings. Huge fan of his. To be fair, I will say I'm a big fan of his. A lot of the stuff a lot of the stuff does come right. It's his opinion, of course, but it all depends on how you look at it. I am quite a big fan of his, to be fair, because there's no certain bullshit with him. He kind of cuts with a very sharp knife, like.
He says things, to be honest, that I don't agree with, and he's very misogynist. Or misogynistic, is that the word? I don't know. He's not my favorite person, but I have to say I do sometimes watch videos of him because I really admire the way he carries himself in a conversation, because he has a very good way. It's like an art of kind of dismantling what the person
any
is. Any argument. Like he's definitely, more than anything, a really interesting person to observe, having a conversation for sure. You can learn a lot from the way he talks to people.
Yeah, he actually, I saw him, I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast there. He says he has to be very careful fighting with his wife because he'll sit down and listen for half an hour and dissect the whole argument and then feel like he wins it because he beats her on it. So some of the times he won't even argue with his wife sometimes because he's kind of like, well, that's not necessarily. But he has such a huge IQ as well. The guy is smart. You know, he is like super smart. And I don't think there comes a time where feelings don't really come into it, where you're sort of that smart, where it's kind of like, well, do you know what? This is black and white in his mind. You know, I think there's no bend with him, like, which is, you can take that the way you want to. But he's very straight down the middle, like.
You know what? That's an interesting, what you just said there about someone like him who's basically very black or white or very, can't. That's super challenging, actually. And
I wouldn't hire him. Hire him.
But But it's a good kind of, I guess he's a good example, because someone like that who's very set in their way and their thought process is, for example, like definitely wouldn't be a very good hire, I don't think, because they would be very resistant and they would be, not in any way open to change, and they would be probably just, they're right. And it's a very egotistical way to carry on and to carry yourself. Is this way of like, everything that I say is right, and this is my way. And I've met people like that, and I personally could never imagine myself being in a relationship or being close with someone who is that way, of that frame of mind. And I'm really lucky that the people in my life and my family and my parents are very open to feedback, are very open to me saying to them, well, you might think this way, and especially the older generation, you might think this way, but actually this is what's happening today, and X, Y, and Z is why you should maybe think differently. And I've been very fortunate to mostly have people in my life that have been quite, open to having their opinion change. And I became very open myself to having my mind change. I don't really know when, probably a few years ago. And
everything changes when you hit 30. Remember that. Everything changes once you hit 30. Everything goes out the window.
Oh my God. Everything changes when you hit 30.
Life brings a whole new meaning when you hit 30.
Well, the hangovers are so bad.
I don't even drink anymore. It just doesn't do me. I just curl up in a ball and want to die for 5 or 6 days after I go drinking. Like, I'm just not right.
I saw this picture the other day. I think it was on Instagram, and it was a picture of a corpse like lying down, like in a fetal position, and it was like hangovers in your 30s. And I just thought, Jesus Christ, that literally was me a couple of weeks ago after having maybe four gin and tonics, because I haven't really been drinking at all through coronavirus.
Yeah,
because I can't cope with the anxiety. Literally, I cannot. I get so anxious if I'm hungover. Yeah. And I was just like, I can't have this anxiety in a global pandemic, but obviously it's starting to kind of ease a little bit, and we're coming out the other end ever so slightly. But yeah, the alcohol when you hit 30
just doesn't work. We swear we're 100 the way we're going on. Like, do you know what I mean? They
I
say
know,
life begins at 50 now rather than 40 and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I can't do it. Can't do it.
I know. I always say that age is a state of mind, but I tell this to my dad so that he doesn't think that he's old, because I don't want him to be old.
Your dad's not old.
I know. He keeps saying it, and I'm like, no, you're not. It's just the way you're thinking that you're getting old because of the way your thought process is, but no.
No, to be fair, no, he's not old, so don't have to worry too much about that.
He's better than me and everyone else in the family, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
It's all good. So how did you get on the coronavirus in Berlin? What was it like? Was it as relaxed as it was here in Ireland, or was it fairly strict?
That's a good question. It was relatively relaxed in comparison to the other parts of Germany. Germany handled it, I think, seemingly very well. And like Berlin, literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks has really started to open up. So I went out for dinner like a few weeks ago with a couple of my friends. Like, of course, when we went into the restaurant, we had to there was like a couple of measures we had to take into consideration, and we had to sit quite far away from each other. And but it
even
was,
if you were the same party, you kind of had to sit. There was still social distancing going, even if we were all sitting together.
Well, they only take maximum 4 people, but we did have to sit, at a kind of a bit of a distance from each other. And what else can I say about it? We have to wear masks when we go into any shops. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, people are taking it pretty seriously. I think no one knows really what to do or how to handle it. There's times when I'm like, oh, I definitely shouldn't have walked so close to that person. And I forget about it sometimes. But
it's
I
really
think
funny
overall,
seeing on TV and stuff like that, where you see things shot beforehand, and like in movies and stuff, and you see everyone hugging and kissing and shaking hands, and you're kind of going, oh, hang on a second. Like, even I shook a guy's hand the other day, and I was kind of going, probably shouldn't have done that now, to be fair, like, but it's
I know
you gotta do, like, do you know what I mean? You're hardly gonna sanitize your hands straight afterwards, because then you're gonna think, Christ, what's wrong with your man? Like, you know what I mean?
It's weird. I wonder what the new norm will be like with this whole handshaking thing, and I don't know.
Like this, they'd say.
Bowing? Well, that'd be kind of cool, but I don't know.
Like the Asian way of doing it, just go bow like that. Maybe. Or elbows. They would be using elbows. Or maybe
in Ireland, we can genuflect towards each other. Wouldn't that be adorable?
That'd be country, wouldn't it?
Can you imagine? Oh, God. Imagine if I started doing that in Berlin. Yeah. So, to be honest, I was very lucky to be there, I felt, because I just, as opposed to London, just because London is obviously way more densely populated, and it just would have been a very different kind of situation, because its apartments are smaller and everything, and it just feels like a bit more of suffocation, especially when it's hot and everything. So I felt very lucky to be there, but I was so happy to get home on Sunday. I literally, as soon as the plane landed in Dublin, I was like, oh my God, I'm safe. I'm in the motherland. I'm here with my people. I am so happy. And then I came home and seeing my family after 6 months. I never do that. I always come home every maybe 2 months to see everyone.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen my sister Jen and the kids and Chid, but my brother-in-law. But I have yet to see them, and I'm so excited. So
that'd be cool.
I feel very lucky, and I think a big thing. There was obviously a time when I just couldn't come home, and I don't know when. I've never had that experience in all my time living away where I couldn't come home. Yeah. I think there was a time where my mental health was struggling, especially in the last few weeks, because I just got so sick of the 4 walls of my bedroom. I was working in my room from my desk, and then I was sleeping in my room, and then I was finding I can't sleep because I'm wound up, and I'm actually struggling now. There was a moment where I was like, I think my mental health is a bit on edge. And I think but it was like nothing I felt before. I think we've all gone through this struggle in this time of Corona. And I've tried from the beginning, I tried to always be quite positive about the situation. And I was quite positive about the fact that, you know, I now have some time to put into like my blog and my side project and like all of these different things. I reconnected with so many people in my life that I haven't like really spoken to in a long time. Like some of my old school friends that I'm like actually had some time to really talk to them about their lives and what's happening in them. But I tried to really, you know, well, first of all, I stopped reading the news and I stopped reading the headlines because I feel like the media has a lot to answer at the moment with the way they handle coronavirus. And they are like scaring the shit out of everyone with all these crazy headlines. And, you know, then you start seeing, oh, there's a second wave coming and this and that and the other. And it's like, hang on a second now. This is just, I need to, first of all, I only care about the rules. I only care right now about what I need to do the right thing in this pandemic. And the numbers, okay, I can look at the numbers. But actually, when you really look at the numbers and study the numbers, you're just as likely to get hit by a bike than you are to get coronavirus and die. So, like, I think there was a lot of scaremongering going on and there was this echo chamber. And I was guilty as well at the beginning of sharing loads of articles with my friends and wrecking their heads with these articles. And when I stopped doing that, it really improved my mental health. And when I stopped consuming things, because everything we consume is like, it will make or break our mental health. It is what we consume. I mean on Instagram, on social media, the stuff that we read, the news, the articles that we read, you can have one headline and it can put you in a bad mood. You can read something and it can put you in a bad mood or give you the anxiety for the whole day. And I'm very passionate about the whole thing of like being careful about what you read and who you follow and who you consume. And I feel like, I don't know, in Corona, obviously social media at the moment is like serving a purpose for a lot of people to be very outspoken about what's going on with the riots and everything. But I feel in general with social media through coronavirus, you know, I was guilty of sharing things like, oh, I did a run today and I'm really proud, so I'm going to share it. And I would tag this active giving company and then they would plant trees. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm really giving back and I'm such a great citizen of the world. But then I started to slowly realize, like, actually, this isn't fair to other people. Like, we all kind of owe it to each other to be careful about what we share in terms of, like, ask yourself, why am I sharing this? Like, what is the purpose of me sharing this post? Is it because I want likes, or is it because I want someone to see that I've done a workout and to think that I'm great and that I'm super fit because I did a workout? And it's easy to fall into that trap. But if I saw other people working out, at one point, I just stopped working out. I haven't really been working out that much. I go for walks. Sometimes I go for a run, but I just can't, I'm not feeling it at the moment because it's a global pandemic. And I found that to be an interesting one, and I pretty much stopped like following people that were pissing me off, basically. Like, bye.
Right, that's what the dislike button is for. Yeah. Unfollow, click. Yeah, we have to be very, very careful of it. It's do you know what? It's a scary thing because it's a drug that you can't get enough of. You know, it's not like drugs where you can OD. It's not like there's no measurable amount of social media that is going to make you go, Jesus, I gotta stop. You know what I mean? It's it's not like gambling where you can lose everything, you know, but I definitely believe that social media now in 2020 there's a lot of good to it, but there's a lot more bad to it right now than there is good to it. I personally think, especially in being able to, do you know what? It's like there's the thing, again, I'm going to say where I saw it on Instagram, but like you can be Instagram happy, which is, there was one picture of an apple that was absolutely perfect. And then when you saw it from the other side, it was bitten out of the core.
Yeah.
Instagram famous, Instagram life is all bollocks in my mind.
Yeah.
Absolute
Oh my God.
bollocks.
You know what? I'm so happy that we're talking about this because I have so many feelings about this topic.
I do. Genuinely, I feel like it's all bollocks. You're not gonna write up on your Facebook page or your Instagram page that, hang on a second, I've had an absolute shit night's sleep. I thought I was only farting and I shit my pants. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to say that on Facebook. You're going to turn around and go, ooh, I had a rough night's sleep. And I had a rough night's sleep, and yeah, do you know, my stomach is upset. You're not going to really tell the truth of the whole lot of it. And that's what's so false about it. And the thing about it is getting, like, what you've got 8 and 9-year-olds now with smartphones, and they're seeing all of this, you know, and it's damaging. It really is damaging.
When I think about like my nieces and them going on social media, I just like want to die thinking about, oh my God, what are they going to be like, and what are they going to be looking at and everything. But that's life, and I feel like we are the generation that we just got it when we were old enough to know better. I think I can't imagine, honestly, I cannot imagine what my life would have been like as a teenager or as a, you know,
delighted it wasn't around when I was around the place.
Bullied, like, honestly, like, so badly. And I think that's awful to think that there are kids, so many kids, and we already know of heaps of young kids that have taken their own lives because of this. And it's so easy for someone to get behind and be a keyboard warrior and start trolling people on Instagram. And look at Caroline Flack, what happened to her. And as I said before, we owe it to each other to not like get involved in, first of all, trolling, are shaming people, are to be honest, one of the worst ways is portraying this life that is so fake and so like unfair, like, and what it does, exactly what you said, the Apple analogy, what it does is like what everyone else's highlight reel is what we're looking at and thinking, oh, that's their life. And I honestly, like, some of my friends follow these Irish Instagram influencers, and I have such an issue with some of them because I'm like, what is the photo of their bikini on this nice Saturday morning, standing in front of their mirror? What is that doing for you as a person? Yeah. How is that making you feel good about yourself? If I see something like that on my feed, you are getting unfollowed straight away because I have no time for that. Like, I literally am just like, who are you? What sort of narcissist is going to put up I just can never imagine being that sort of person. Like, I don't know. I just think
if you get paid for it, you would. That's the thing. These there's so much money pumped into it now that it's so easy to do it, and it's just, there's so much money in it.
And it's like, oh, this is my whitening kit for my teeth, or this is my pretty little thing outfit, and I'm like, hang on a second now, like, oh, I just. Obviously, they're making commission off all of the sales. That's the only reason they're promoting it. It's not because they like the dress and you're going to go and buy it because they like it. I really struggle with this. And I think back to what we were talking about earlier, all of these things to do with finding a good job. And, you know, if you want to be like, and success means different things to different people. But the way I look at it is how we focus our energy is the most important thing in our lives. And our lives we only get one chance, and our lives are super fragile, as we know, because we've seen coronavirus and we've seen so many bad things happening in the world. And you have one chance. And if you focus your energy on people like that, following influencers, like, and, you know, just reading bullshit, to be honest, just stuff that isn't relevant or isn't gonna, you have to ask yourself, is this gonna fulfill me? Is this gonna make me a better person? Is this gonna take me forward as a person? And if the answer is no, just get rid of it. And what you take in, like, I know we keep talking about this, but our subconscious mind is so powerful. And when I started learning about the subconscious mind, it just really opened my eyes, because we take in like millions of images every day. We take in everything around us. And that's why people say things about, you know, your gut instinct, and your gut is just as smart as your brain, or we have as many nerve endings in our gut as in our brain and everything. That's like our environment. That's our subconscious picking up everything around us and channeling it into these physical feelings of like, oh, you know, if you don't feel good in a situation, if you're like, I feel really uncomfortable right now. And I just think learning about stuff like that, like educating yourself on real things. There's so many bad things happening in the world, as we all know now. If you take one look at your social media feed, I think it's fairly obvious the sort of stuff that's going on in the world. And when I hear of people following these influencers and these celebrities that are doing nothing with their voice and nothing with their platform, I'm like, hang on a second. How can you think that people like that are worth following and worth like looking at their videos, when there's real influencers, like real change makers out there who are actually like way more worth like listening to what they're saying. They're changing policies, they're changing the world, and we're wasting time like looking at this person's bikini shot. I'm just like, I'm so floored by stuff like that. I've never been into celebrity or pop culture, and I feel like it's worked though for me, like without sounding arrogant at all. It's definitely reading and learning about myself, and like, you know, learning about my mindset has done so much for me in my life. And yeah, it also has made me a very happy person. Like I'm definitely, I would say, maybe not right now, Corona has made me a bit like cuckoo, but like usually I'm a very happy, fulfilled person, and I try and make other people around me feel happy, and I try and be like a good, positive energy, and I genuinely feel that inside. I feel very like I'm just a happy person, I guess. I hope people think that about me, but I have worked
definitely will. Don't worry. Definitely
I have worked hard on that though. I've worked like really hard to make sure I'm looking at the right things, and I'm looking at positive messages, and I'm following good people, and I'm reading good things. And I think that's super important, especially at a time like now where we can be influenced so easily because we're all a bit on the edge.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to sort of set us off now as well, you know? And like what's really frightening is the unknown that this coronavirus is bringing, which is very, very frightening because no one seems to know how, what, or when. Like everybody's waiting now. I know we're after getting the go ahead there for Monday that we can go a little bit further and a little bit further, but it's going to create so much anxiety for people when they get back out into the world. Like I would hate to be old. I genuinely would. I'd hate to be in my 80s or something like that, where I've been in my house on my own for the last 3 months and be told to go outside, and then heaven forbid someone sneezes in the area with me, like within my radius. Like you be going, Jesus, what's going to happen to me? You know what I mean? Like the instantly, like it's just going to, you know, there's so much verbal vomit out there that it just sticks. You know, there's the old saying, we'll throw enough shit at the wall and see if it lands. And it is. And that is the problem. And that's what people really need to sort of take a step back and go, right, well, how is this affecting me personally?
Yeah.
And then I will go forward with that. You know, if it's not going to affect me, really, I've got enough on my plate right now to be not dealing with anybody else's, you know? So I don't care if you're in a bikini. I don't care if you're driving a Ferrari. I don't care if you're after doing 400 squats at 800 kilos. I honestly, fair play to you. You know, I couldn't give a shit. If it doesn't affect my sort of circle of 10 people, maybe 15, it don't bother me. It really, really doesn't bother me. Everyone can just go off and they can go do their own thing, and let them do their thing. Do you know what I mean? Let them. Everybody, like you said, it's I think it's 1 in 400 million of a chance of us actually being born. So don't waste it. Don't waste it on looking at social media influencers that are getting paid 100 quid and like they're 21 years of age and they've got more plastic in their face than Barbie. Like, what's the point? But maybe, I don't know, maybe I've gone that far that I just don't care about it anymore. But I don't know. I don't see the point in it. We're making stupid people rich. We're making stupid people famous. And we're not giving the people with sort of common sense and even people that have just general life lessons a voice. But yet we can find out what the latest tooth whitening fucking kit is on eBay for 50 quid. Like.
Well, the thing is, what I think is sad is that I really, and this is actually very sad, is that the most beautiful people, these people that are sharing these images and everything like that, and the pictures of their bodies and everything, these are the people that are the most unhappy. And these are the reason they're doing this is because they are seeking your like and your validation to make them feel better because they have nowhere else to look, because they're not fulfilled in themselves. They're not happy with themselves. And they want this reinforcement and validation to show like, oh, I am really pretty. Oh, I am really, and I have a really nice body. And obviously I do, because all these people are like it on Instagram. And to be honest, some of the best looking people that I know are some of the most unhappy. And I actually have felt like that for a really long time, like the best looking people, and like growing up and everything. And, you know, I don't know, like people that I've met that I'm like, oh my God, you are like the most stunning person I've ever met. They have a lot of the time very, very deep rooted issues because, you know, their looks have just become such an important factor in their lives. And people are constantly making assumptions about that person based on their looks, which we all have done and which we all pretty much do. And I think to your point, what you just said a minute ago, Terence, about, what we're looking at, what we're consuming, social media is, fortunately and unfortunately, anyone can say whatever they want on social media. So we have, in many ways, a platform where we can use our voice. And if we're not an asshole, that's amazing. We can spread so much information. We can talk about our views. We can share. I mean, I have been hysterical at some of the stuff I see on Instagram or whatever. And then we have the flip side of the coin, which is a lot of hatred, a lot of scaremongering, a lot of campaigns for elections and people that maybe shouldn't have been voted in, and just different things like that are actually very, very toxic and very dangerous. And we have, like, I didn't really know much or really care much about fake news for a long time, and I didn't even really think it was a thing. And then, of course, I looked into it, and then, like, there's so many false articles. I've never read tabloids because I know they're full of shit, and I know that they slay people, and they should all be put out of business because they're just awful. But I think you're right. It's really important to take a step back and, look at, like, what is on my newsfeed? What am I looking at? What am I consuming again? Because that will really impact how you think. It really will. And it's almost sometimes like an echo chamber. Like, if you're following all of the same sort of minded people, then, you're going to have the same updates, and you're going to be reading the same things and have the same thoughts. And it is really important to change your perspective a bit and reflect on, like yourself. That's hugely important. And how am I making other people feel? How am I coming across to the world? And yeah, like, I think that's really important. As you said, just take a step back.
I think you got to take a step back and look at yourself in the mirror first before we do absolutely anything. You can't go preach what you don't believe in, I believe. You can't go preach what you don't do yourself. Like, there's that old saying, do as I say and not as I do, which irritates the shit out of me, to be perfectly honest. It really annoys me. Like, why say it if you're not going to do it? Do you know what I mean? Now, I've been guilty of it myself. Everybody's been guilty of it, but it's one of them sayings that really drives me crazy. And I think you have to take a step back, and, like, you have to focus on yourself. And if you can focus on yourself, you can help change then. Like, we have to be kind of selfish about this, because we do have to look at ourselves. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror from head to toe and go, right, I'm making a change from today onwards. And if you can make a change with yourself, everything else then will gravitate towards you. The people in your life that'll be better will come. Like, I believe whatever energy you put out, you get back.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So if you're going to be a negative, you're going to be an arsehole, you're just going to get arseholes in your life. Simple as.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a nice person. Now, there's exceptions to the rule all the time. We just take a general rule at this. But if you're a nice, genuine person, you'll have nice, genuine people in your life. And it took me a long time to learn that. It really did. And I'll be hands up, I was guilty of a lot of things in my youth. It took me a long time before I realized that I need to look at myself before I look at anybody else. It's easier to look at everybody else. It's so much easier to look at absolutely everybody else in the world and go, right, he's an asshole. He can change his hair. She shouldn't do that. If she's wearing that, she needs to lose a bit of weight. He can't go with that. He shouldn't drive that car. Do you know, it's so much easier. And if we don't look at ourselves, we can't sort of say, well, look, hang on a second here now. I don't care, for once. And second, what can I do to change myself? Yeah. And I think that's what you're saying. A lot of books that you read, I found, and this is in my last year, since I had my youngest one, she's 15 months there now, I found audiobooks. Now, I'm sick as a shit. Like, in school, I did my Leaving Cert twice, and I ended up getting less the second time than I did the first time. So hands up, I'm as dumb as shit when it came to school, right? So it doesn't matter to me, right? But I wouldn't have the patience to read a book. But audiobooks has given me an education that I never even knew. I have been out walking. Everyone knows I go out walking every morning. But I put an audiobook in my ears and go away. And it's so easy for me to consume books. Like, I've listened to 15 books this year already. I haven't read 15 books in my lifetime. You know, I haven't read 15 books in my life up until when I found audiobooks. It just finds it really live. And you know what? It takes me out of all the bullshit. You know, I have certain podcasts that I like listening to and certain guys that I'll follow on that. But even that, to a certain degree, is bullshit too, because they're only looking for likes and they're only looking for the exposure, and like you have to see what way they're coming from, what's their angle, because they all have an angle. They're all trying to do the exact same thing. They're all trying to get likes and get everything. You know, like, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm a bit worried. I'm worried for my kids growing up, to be perfectly honest. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it, because I got an 8, 7 and 15-month-old, all girls, so I'm in serious trouble. But this is going to be fun. I have a lot of sins to get my way. I have a lot of time in purgatory for the next 10 or 15 years.
You'll have to go up to confession now in the next few days.
Yeah, definitely, to try and hope that it might be a bit easy for me in my teenage years, and their teenage years, not mine. But like, I don't know how we're going to deal with it, other than just tell them to put the fucking blinkers on and not listen and not watch, and just, have to. I do believe there's a lot to do with parenting in this issue. Not saying that you have to give your child its worth. If you give a child's worth that he can sit in front of an iPad for 8 hours a day, it's going to believe whatever the iPad says before you do. Like, there was a thing I read there. I got fucking, my eyes are killing me tonight. Sorry. I got this, I don't know where I read it from, but anyway, doesn't matter. But if you get a like, and the amount of likes added to a teenage girl, like, they will take down pictures if they don't get over 100 likes. That's standard procedure. If you don't get over 100 likes in the picture, they'll take it down. But they did a chemical balance that it has the same effect on their adrenal glands. And there's a word, it won't come to me, it might come to me in a second, an endorphin, that 3 lines of cocaine would do to an average man. It has the same rush for a teenage girl to get over 100 likes as 3 lines of cocaine does to the average man. Like, that's powerful stuff, and that's right in front of your hand.
Read that.
You know what I mean? I will find it and I will send it to you. Mad. I promise I will find it and I'll send it to you. It's frightening. It is frightening, and that's all just on likes and hearts.
That's on likes. I know. I do think they need to remove that likes feature, to be honest. But the thing is, the parenting thing, I guess I definitely am not qualified to give any parental advice, because I do not have kids. I have 3 beautiful nieces, but I mean, I don't know. I think that for sure, educating kids from a very early age about, like, what could happen, like the dangers of social media and everything, it would be super important. I think what you said, like, that's interesting about all the likes, and I am definitely a little bit addicted to Instagram, and like you said earlier, you can't measure it. I can't have an overdose on it. Yeah. But I know, because I also work off my computer and I'm on Zoom calls, and then I'm like, why am I looking at my screen? My eyes are going to turn square. That's what my granny used to tell me, so I tell myself that too when I'm trying to get off something. And I'm just like,
if the wind changes, your face will stay the same.
I know. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, they will go square. But I need to go. Sometimes I'm like, I need to go for a walk, or I need to just get out and, like, not be looking at my phone or my social media. And sometimes what I've started doing now is I will just delete the app for a few days, so that I have some time to just, like, I don't, it's a habitual thing. You go on it, and it does give you a dopamine hit if you get a like, or if you get something, or, like, I don't know, I guess we use it as well to message people. And I think it's definitely important. And I like to consider myself like someone who is in control per se of what they like, how they spend their time or whatever. Definitely very time consuming, and it's also very distracting. Like, if you are a very entrepreneurial person, you've got loads of projects on, and I feel like I can't even imagine how successful I would be as a human being if I didn't have social media, because I would have done all these amazing things with my free time. But going back to Audible, I really don't like Jeff Bezos. I can't stand him, but I do.
I'll give you a loophole out of this one. I'll give you a loophole out of this one. As many as a couple of people. Sorry, my eyes are absolutely killing me tonight. I don't know what's wrong with them. But anyway, yeah, probably. I'll give you a loophole, and this will be a secret, right? I've tried to build this radio station with as little money as possible going into it, right? Because I said it was just going to be a project, and I was actually going to call it the Broke Ass Podcast, because I was genuinely trying to make it at zero cost to myself. Now, I have if you saw this setup here, this is absolute like caveman stuff. Like, genuinely, honestly.
Thank
The,
God
the
you have the saucy curtain though in the background.
my fancy curtains that I got free. Wait, it gets
Oh,
better. Yeah, no, so yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I said I wouldn't put a penny into this, right? So I've always tried to figure out a way of what less it can cost me. Maybe I'm just a cheap ass, but I try to figure out a way of it costing less as a challenge more than anything else. But if you
okay.
get onto YouTube and you just go full audiobooks, there is a wealth on YouTube, all free, all free. I think there's maybe 700 books on there, full audio. Some of them you have to have 2 links to and stuff like that. But it's free. It's absolutely free. Just go on YouTube and type whatever book you have. Now, sometimes they'll just give you the study notes and just this and that and the other. But if you go into just YouTube it, and you can put it off, you can switch it off on your phone, so you don't even have to read it because there's only genuinely just one picture. And you can listen away to it, and it's grand. No, occasionally you'll get ads and stuff like that, but for paying €15 or what is it? Is it €15 a month and then €4 for a book on Amazon?
No. It's on Audible. I think it's that's pounds, £7.99 a month or something. It's under €10. But I honestly,
pay for your books, though.
I do hate Jeff Bezos, and I think Amazon are crooks, and they for lots of reasons. Obviously, I think most people do, but I feel like I can justify this purchase because I just like you, I don't have the patience to sit down and read a book usually. I do have a Kindle, but I just can't focus really on it. I just find that when I'm listening, I'm so much better listening and taking notes. I find super effective when I have a book that I really want to like. Some books I read twice so that I can really like understand it. The most recent book that I listened to, this is my second time listening to it, was Atomic Habits. And I'm not sure if you've read or listened to that book. But I definitely want to like tell people about it because it's an amazing book, and it's all about how we build habits and habit stacking. And I know we've spoken a bit about this before, about making changes and being careful about what we consume and everything. But in this book, the guy talks a lot about like habit stacking, which is you add a habit onto something that you do anyway in your daily routine. Like you get up and you brush your teeth or you make your coffee. And if you want to do like, I don't know, 10 press ups or whatever, or something completely different, maybe you want to write some morning pages and have a meditation or whatever, then add this on just before your main habit that you're always doing, like your coffee or whatever. And that book actually did change my life. The first time I read it, it was what led me to starting my blog. I always wanted to have a blog. I always wanted to write. And I was always like, oh, like worried about what people thought and worried that I wasn't good enough and all these things that, especially as women, we have all these, like this imposter syndrome, which is very common. You're
going to have to explain that now because that goes way over my head.
Imposter syndrome is basically the syndrome where you feel like you're not good enough to do something. So you feel like you're an imposter in a situation. So for example, a lot of senior people might get it, are people that are, it could be anything. And I'm sure probably a lot of people have heard of it. It's where you're maybe having to write about something, or maybe you're a senior and you find yourself thinking, oh my God, what do I know? Like, why should I be the person to do this? And so many people get that. And honestly, especially women, we really kind of end up doubting ourselves a lot. And I had that. And then in this book, it was like, oh, if you want to do something, you just start doing it. And I was like, I want to be a writer. I want to write, not be a writer, but I really wanted to express myself somehow. I had all these like feelings and thoughts, and I was like, how am I going to get these like down out there somehow? And then I started this. The book was like, do the thing, start doing the thing, and then you become the, let's say, writer. Or if you want to be a basketball player, if you want to be a musician, like start doing the thing, pick up the guitar and start playing, and you will become a guitarist. And it was that was so simple, but it was just like, wow, this is like revolutionary for me, because then I just started. And then obviously the more you do it, the better you become and the more confident you become. And then it makes you think as well about people that are like successful. Nothing happened overnight, and people really make sacrifices to have successful careers in something and to be good at something. And I think like having that book, all these other books that I listened to,
Have you listened to Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway?
I read that a long time ago. Yeah, that's a good one.
Book. It's a good book.
Metabolize the Fear. Yeah, I love that one.
It's a good book. I'm
What else?
halfway through it. I haven't read it all. I'm only halfway through it.
It's a good one. You know what I like about that book is like it's quite short, isn't it? And it's very much like it literally it is what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Like feel the fear, and we naturally kind of avoid, like, we don't avoid fear because we can't help avoiding fear. Fear is like what we feel, but we avoid situations that make us feel fear because of the fear. But when it's like normal, like when you metabolize that feeling and when you just embrace it and you're like, no, this is good. I have nerves. And I say this to candidates before an interview. I'm like, these nerves are healthy. Just breathe and just focus. But the nerves are good because it's like your adrenaline, and it means that you really care about this situation that you're facing, you know? But yeah, I really like that book. There's another book that I really love, and I would absolutely encourage anyone to read this. It's called The Slight Edge, and it's basically about, so there's this thing, the compound effect, which we all probably know is like, you do, again, back to what we were talking about earlier, you do one small thing every day and it just accumulates and it builds, and then this compound effect, and then eventually you have like, it's like a snowball, it just snowballs and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but it doesn't happen just like that. It's not like boom. Same as just what we were saying about, you know, people's success. And this book is literally about down to your choices as an individual. You make choices all day, every day, and you either make a good choice or you make a bad choice. And the good choices that you make will determine like you being successful, and the bad choices you make will mean, you know, and you can relate it to any part of your life, whether it's how you're eating, what you're doing, what you're reading, how if you want to do that extra 5 minutes of work or not. I really love that book, so I would recommend that to everyone. I think it's Jeff Olson, The Slight Edge.
The Slight Edge.
I think you'd like that, Terence. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think I might.
I can see you bombing out the Abbey listening to that.
Yeah. Just giving out to myself, going, Jesus, I've wasted so many years of my life. Why haven't I done this yet?
I know.
Yeah, that happens. It does. It really does happen, you know. There's a lot of, like, again, let's take a shit in school. I think school needs to be changed. I will be a firm advocate of changing school, because, like, when was the last time you used Pythagoras' theorem? Do you know, when did you find X in your life?
I was like a joke in school. I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't listening to anyone. I would ask a question, and then 2 seconds later, I'd be like looking over the other direction. I just, if I'm not like super engaged in the subject, I can't focus on it very easily unless I absolutely force myself to. But no, it's too difficult.
I spent a Cert in class just looking out the window, watching raindrops run down and racing them in my own head. That's that's my attention span.
Oh my God, that's so funny, because I definitely think I did that before, and I was like, I wonder if anyone else does this.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like growing up in Ireland, childhood in Ireland.
I could tell you how many squares was in certain classes in the school and everything. Oh man, it's hard.
Well,
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me, and it genuinely wasn't for me. And I'll say this now. I'm 32 now, 32, and it's to a certain degree. My dad always has and in fairness to him, he always has a very great outlook in life. He says, you can't be everything, but once you're happy, that's everything. And it's a sentence in itself, and it's a backward sentence, but it means so much. Like, if you I don't know, we all have dreams and aspirations when we're teenagers. We're all going to take on the world. We're all going to do this. We're all going to do that. And like even you said there now, I went to college. I spent, 4 years in college and did a degree that I never did a day's work in. It sits in a frame on my parents' wall, and that's it. I never did a day's work. Now, I did auctioneering in a state agency, economics and valuation for property, right? Because I was told I could sell snow to the Eskimos. So I was like, well, you know, houses at the time, it was property boom. I said, right, I'm going to get me a piece of that pie. But I came out in 2009, 2010, somewhere like that. And like, it was no jobs, like zero. Like you couldn't get a job. And what was frightening was the year before, we were scouted for internships and stuff like that in businesses. And by the time we actually finished our college, these businesses were closed.
Oh,
And it was absolute decimation in that sector, right? Which is fine. It is what it is. And then I went from that into DJing. I managed to wrangle my way into the local bank at the time and tell a big spiel to the bank manager, and she gave me a bank loan. Bigger fool her, but anyway, she managed to do it. In fairness, she did back me in all my crazy endeavors. She's actually gone now, which is even worse for that bank, because it was fantastic. She used to always believe in me, which was great. Yeah, no, she was fantastic. And I went from DJing into owning bars, into owning restaurants, into doing this, into bars, into this again, to like, just because you don't have your leaving cert, or just because you do shit in your leaving cert, that's not it. It's not game over there. You're 18, 19 years of age. You do not have a fucking clue what your life is going to turn out like. You don't have a notion of how your life is going to turn out, and you cannot plan your life.
Yeah,
you know, there was I think, what was it, Mr. O'Grady? He was my 5th class teacher, and he was fantastic. He used to always give these little nuggets of information, and he turned around and he said to us one day, he says, you're going to have to start thinking about, when you get to secondary school, what you want to do when you're leaving cert. And he turned around and he says, it doesn't matter. He says, if you are the world's greatest snail collector, if you're the greatest at that, you'll be paid for it. So he says, do whatever you do, but be the best at it, and you will get paid.
God, that's so nice. You see, I said this earlier. This is so funny that you were quoting Mr. O'Grady and I quoted Miss O'Grady. Yeah. What a power couple. But yeah, like having a teacher like that really encourages you and understands you.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And like, honestly, I can't say that for the majority of my teachers. Like I definitely was a bit misunderstood, and me and you obviously had a lot in common in that sense, in that we weren't learning the conventional way. I didn't learn the way other students learned. I didn't learn in a big classroom full of other people. I still don't learn in that setting. I have to take my own time. I have to take notes. I have to go over it a few times, and everyone's way of learning is completely different. And what I would say about the Irish schooling system, or most schooling systems, is, you know, it's not really designed for everyone. And to be honest, when I was in that environment and when I wasn't doing well in my exams, and when I wasn't, of course, I knew that was really down to the fact that I probably wasn't putting in the work, but I wasn't really given that much of an opportunity to try and learn other ways either. And that was really bad for my confidence. And I don't struggle with confidence, that's for sure. But at the time, I thought, like, what am I going to do with my life? Everyone else is going to college. Everyone's, you know, there was like a certain kind of category of, or a certain sort of group of careers that most people went on and did. And they were perfectly brilliant careers, but it wasn't where I could see my path going. And I was, for a long time, I was super lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had this like glass ceiling kind of mentality. Like, I didn't go to college, so I'm probably never going to make anything of myself. And, you know, I'm
that's what's taught to us, though. That is what taught, like, and it's so funny because you get it, you do your junior, and this is what really galls me about the Irish system. You do your junior cert. Come the first day of there's a bit of feedback, either the first day of 5th year or 4th year, whatever it is in the schools now. I think there's 4th year now in the schools. The first day that you're told, well, forget about your junior cert. That was your biggest waste of the last 3 years of your life. You go do the leaving cert and it's all power, leaving cert. You get into college and you're turned around and told, forget about your leaving cert. That was the biggest waste of your life. And you're kind of going, well, I just spent 18 years of my life trying to get something, which now means jack shit to me, because I mightn't even like the course that I'm being forced by my parents into. And like, I'd say a good shot of dropouts is because they try to do something that appeases their parents rather than themselves. You know, and kids really have to look at what they want to do, because at the end of the day, if you don't like your job, you won't be the best at it. Yeah.
And I think as well, I can say a lot for, like, I would encourage anyone who has this desire to take a year out after secondary school, because it's the way that it's really annoying, the way that they put this pressure on you to fill out your CEO form, whatever, what's it called? CAO, whatever?
CAO form. I think it's still the CAO form.
Of my life. I was like, oh, I just fill out this form, whatever it's called. And oh my God, I was so stressed about that. And that was my year of my leaving cert. And not that I was crazy stressed about my leaving cert. Obviously, with my 200 something points, like I didn't exactly go overboard with the study, but I was finding the whole thing a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like 5. I have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. So, if you do take a year out, you can at least go into the workforce, or, even get a job, like, and just earn some money. Even it doesn't matter what the job is, go and earn some money, understand what it's like to actually start kind of working maybe for someone and getting some experience. And then in that year, take some time, do different short courses. There's so much out there. There is so much on YouTube. There is so much access. We have, like, this is the thing. And this pandemic will be over. It will end, because history shows us that every pandemic has ended and we've come out the other end and life will go back to normal. And why not use this time when we have access to the whole world online, where you can see things you just mentioned earlier, YouTube, like listening to audiobooks, like put your energy into finding something that you care about and something that you want to do with your life. And this is, like, it took me a while, but I figured it out. And now I absolutely, like, really love what I do. And like, when you get energy from something and when it really, like, makes you happy, that's when you feel super fulfilled. And it's not easy to do, but the more you try things, I always was very open about trying things, even if obviously we fail at things all the time if we try them, but I always kept an open mind about, like, okay, I'm just going to throw myself into this and that. And of course it's scary. And you're reading the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that's a super good book, because it's like, it encourages you to throw yourself into uncomfortable situations. And the situations that I've been most uncomfortable in my life, and the phases of my life that I've been so scared and so uncomfortable, is where I have grown the most, and where I have been able to, like, really be proud of, like, okay, I've actually done something really cool here, and I've grown so much and I've learned so much, and my confidence from that just keeps building. And I think, the education system here is very focused on getting your degree and very focused on, like, this one way of doing things. And as much as for many people, that's really good and that's great. And I am all about educating yourself and education overall. But I think there's many flaws in the system, and I think that one of them is that it's not inclusive. It's not, it's not good for people who have different ways of learning. And these people need to understand, and it's people like me and you. We need to understand that it doesn't mean that we're not smart. Like, I consider myself a smart person. You're a smart person, and like,
people beg to differ.
You didn't get the points. What did you say?
I said a lot of people would beg to differ.
No, but you know what I mean? Just because you didn't get the points in your leaving cert, that doesn't mean anything about what you're capable of. And
it doesn't. And that you've got to stress that enough, especially to kids. And, like, even with the situation they have now, I don't know whether there'll be any kids watching this, but if I can give them a small bit of advice, is, like, because they're not doing their leaving cert, and it's going to be, I don't know what they've decided on doing, it's now going to be up to the teachers to grade them. Like, I think if I was left to the teachers grading me, I'd have like 5 points.
Oh my God, I was not a minus.
Yeah, possibly. But I definitely would say it to all kids. Your leaving cert, although it's important to a cert, like, no, do you know what? The leaving cert is absolute fucking bullshit. I'm going to say it right here and now, right? Because if you're 19 years of age, and this is the point I'll make, right? And this is the absolute fact, right? If you're 19 years of age and you come out and you didn't get your course, you can wait 2 years and come on as a 22-year-old and be in, what do they call that?
Mature student?
A mature student, and get the fucking course you want to do anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's bullshit. That's why, and I hate the fact that there's so much pressure on teenagers to do so well in this, because if you're 18, 19, you're only a baby in the real world. You don't have a fucking clue what you want to do. And yet you're poised into this where if you don't get 500 points, you'll never be able to do it. You could take them 2 years out, rather than wasting a big old pile of money in college for them 2 years, drop out then and then go do a different course. Take them 2 years out, find yourself, find out what you actually want to do. Because, like we said, if you don't like your job and having to go in there every single morning at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or, have a job rather than a career.
Yeah.
I think having a career is something you like and you enjoy, and every day you learn something. Whereas having the standard 9-to-5 job where you're, thank God that it's the weekend. That's a sad existence, like, you know what I mean? Now, I'm fairly lucky because I get away with doing something that I love and people pay me for it.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with the way things have turned out. But I love doing this. I love DJing, and I've managed to figure out a way that to rob the general public. They keep paying me to do it, so it's fantastic. But find something like, and it always resonated even to this day. If you're the best snail collector in the world, you will get paid for it.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think just to your point about like the situation with the Leaving Cert is that are just in general, the way things are, you focus so much and you feel this intense pressure and you feel like this is the only thing in the world that matters. And like, oh, maybe you don't get the points you want. Anyone that I know that didn't get the points they want and didn't get the course they want ended up a lot happier with the course and the career that they chose. So it's almost like the universe sending you the course that's actually right for you. Like, that's definitely how I see it. Everything happens for a reason. And I think just to mention, like, I don't know, like, there's so much more out there. And as long as you continue to educate yourself and continue to learn, and I can't stress this enough, try new things, travel, find yourself, figure out what you like, and then be brave and don't let anyone else determine your worth. That is the biggest thing as well. It's like we put our value on this number. Like, that's what we did for so many years, was this number from the Leaving Cert. And I remember thinking with my 200 and something points, like, oh God, that wasn't great. Like, I just thought, oh yeah, no, I'm never really probably going to have a very good career or whatever. Like, because of that's the way I was taught, is that you need this in order to succeed in life. And like, it's never come up for me in conversation for years up until this point, only because we enjoyed talking about it the other day and they were laughing about my 265 or whatever. It's not relevant in my life. And some teachers that I had were amazing and they taught me a lot. I did, like, I have to say, and it's not easy being a teacher. I would have no patience for it.
Good luck, I forget it.
It's just the system, like, it's just how things are done, and the emphasis that's put on this one number is just too much. And it's just so important for young people to realize there is so much more out there. There is so much more for you. You just have to look for it. You just have to try things, and don't worry about what anyone else thinks, because they are not. It is like your life is none of their business, and their thoughts about you is none of your business. And what other people think of you, like, let it go. It doesn't matter. Like, let it go, because then you will really, like, discover happiness and you'll feel free and you'll start to, like, discover yourself. And I think that's another really important thing, especially when you're from a small town. It can be crippling worrying about what other people think of you. And, I think even what you're doing now with this podcast is amazing. And I wish more people would be bold and be brave and do things like this, because we need people to be creative. We need people to be sharing these kind of conversations more often to help the young people and help empower other people and show people that there is a different path that you can take. And, it's not so cut and dry. Like, it doesn't have to be that, like, stringent.
There's a lot to education. And like you've got like the old saying used to always wreck my head, he's book smart and he's street smart. It's like, fuck off, mate. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be me. No one else. There's not a single person on Instagram, Facebook, or WhatsApp or anything else can live your life only but yourself. It's that simple. You have to go to work. You've got to put in the hours. You've got to do the grind. And some people find an internship. I always found hands-on learning much easier. Like, I will try everything. I've had more jobs in the FOSS office, but I will try absolutely everything. And if I don't like it, then I say, oh, well, fuck it, I didn't like it. Do you know what I mean? And that's it. And it's not a loss. It's by no means a loss. All I realized is I don't like it. Do you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with turning around and saying, hang on a second, lads. I'm not pitching my whole entire life on this one thing. And you have to be able to swing with the punches. And like we said this at the very start of it, especially in interviews and stuff like that. Life is going to hit you, and it'll hit you hard. And there's a quote in the Rocky movies, life, nothing will hit you as hard as life, and if you let it, it'll keep beating you until you're down. You'll never be able to get up. And we got to take a step back, and we got to go, right, well, maybe this avenue didn't work. There's 100 roads. There's not just one. So you might have to take a couple of detours, like you can look at it this way. There's about 5 million routes to Dublin. It could be 5 million
Yeah.
routes to the job of your life. You know what I mean? Or the job you
Yeah.
always want. It's not just the M50 straight up. Like, sometimes
That's
people take
very
different
true.
ways. Sometimes people take different ways, and it's what you learn on them different routes that stands to you, in my belief anyway.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
I would always look, as even from an employer's point of view, I would always look at a more flexible person, and like I said at the start, there's a more flexible person than a rigid person, because a
Yeah,
rigid
for
person
sure. Yeah.
won't bend with you. Like, it won't work with you. Like,
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, I mean, I just think as well, like, you mentioned about the different paths, and I think success looks so different to so many different people. And especially like having lived in London where things were very much about, I used to buy things in London and do online shopping, and I used to like find myself wanting things that I didn't even want. Like, and that is what was a very big learning when I went to Berlin. I was like, I have so much stuff. I got rid of so many things. And then I started to feel differently, because as much as I really loved living in London, in Berlin, they don't care. They don't give a shit about what sort of handbag you have or any of those things. They're just like, oh yeah, like people rock up to nightclubs wearing no makeup. In fact, sometimes if you wear makeup, you might not get in. Like, things are so different there, and I love that. And I feel like even that is like, I've learned a lot now from coming here. And as you said, like, there's different paths. Learning along the way is super important. Like, make sure that you are open to learning along the way. And I just think, like, understand what success means to you. Some people are money motivated, and that's fine. Like, that, there's no issue with that. But also, money isn't like the main driver. Like, you have to understand your purpose. And I used to hate when people used to say this to me, like, your purpose, it sounds so fluffy, and are your why. And I think if you take some time to like look inwards and like reflect and think about what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what do you feel like, if you think about yourself on your deathbed, what do you want to be remembered by, or how do you want to be remembered? That, for me, if you really think about that, you don't want to be remembered because you were the most successful person in that one company, or because you have a big fat bank account, or you had that really nice Mercedes. You want to be remembered because of how you make people feel, and how you influence the young people, and how you influence other people around you. And like, that for me is my purpose, and that's my like why. And I only figured it out like in the last maybe year or two, like especially like with the blog. That's why I started doing that, because I wanted to try and push some information out to people on just to help people live happier and better lives. And we can do it. And definitely in this time as well, this pandemic, you can choose to focus on the negative stuff that's happening. You can choose to read those articles that are going to scare the shit out of you, or you can choose to just think to yourself, I'm just as likely to get hit by a bike. I am going to live my life. I am going to use this time to really focus on like building a career, or starting a blog, or starting something. There is so much free stuff online. You just have to go onto YouTube and type in how to become a this or that, whatever. Start doing it. There's loads of ways to make passive income online if you've lost your job. There's so many different things you can do. And I just think it's being a little bit creative, and be really mindful about where you're focusing your energy. Get off any bullshit, like as we discussed before, any of the social influencers that are not adding anything to your life. I'm all about all of those body positive, that movement. I think that's amazing. And I love seeing people being really, encouraging this body positive movement, and like everyone is beautiful and all this. Like, I really, really like to see that. But any of the other ones, like, just mute. If you feel they're your friend and you don't want to unfollow them because you feel like it will cause problems between you two, just mute them. That's what I've done. Sorry to everyone.
Do you know what? I was wondering why you weren't answering my Facebook.
I don't ever look at your stories, obviously.
Yeah, do you know, and like, I have a certain aspect on that too. You've got to keep your circle fairly close, because a big circle only gets in the way of life. And there's a saying, you're only as good as the people around you.
The five people.
People, yeah. There's some saying like that, which is a great saying. It's
I agree.
I show you your 5 friends and I'll show you your future, or something along the lines like that, which is fantastic. It's a great thing, because you really have to look at it. And there's always that one person that you're kind of going, oh, do I really want to go out with them, or do I really want to have to listen to them? And you know what? Sometimes it's best just to cut the fucking ties with them, because they're only a dead weight to you.
I know, and that's actually a really good point. And I think we really need to reserve our energy for the right people. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am a bit of a people pleaser, and I try and give a lot to a lot of people. And I definitely have really burnt myself out doing that before. And if Corona has taught me anything, it's that like certain individuals can actually be really exhausting. So I agree with you. I think not that I'm that good at doing this, but I think it's important as well to kind of say to someone like, "Oh, you're being quite negative," like, just so they're aware, because they might not even realize it themselves. And if you feel comfortable doing that, just saying to them, "Look, you really focus on the negative. Maybe you should try thinking about things this way, or maybe you should try and really just make an effort even for 1 week, and that will literally change the neurological pathways in your brain, is like focus on the positive in a situation." And like that saying, I really like the 5 people that around you determine who you are and how successful you will be in whatever field. And I think that is very, very important, because we are very influenced by the people around us. And back to my point that I made a while ago about checking yourself, like ask yourself, what sort of person am I to be around? Because I think often we don't realize how much of an impact our energy has for people around us, and things that we are saying, like, are we nitpicking with people? Are we criticizing people? Are we, there's so many questions that we can be asking ourselves and just reflecting. But I think that is a really good point. And having mentors, having people to look up to, because they say you can't be what you can't see. I agree with that to a degree. I think
you can't say that again.
It's you can't be what you can't see, and that kind of weighs nicely into what we were talking about, the whole schooling system, and how like I didn't want to be a teacher, an accountant, or all the jobs that they were trying to encourage for all of us. Like I just didn't see myself fitting in there. But at the same time, someone said something to me recently, and I thought it was very interesting. Was yes, that's true. But there's also so many things out there that don't exist yet. And now is the time that so much will be created, because people are being super creative in this period of time in coronavirus, when they're staying indoors and they're online and they're creating and they have time to really just exist. So just know as well that like you might come up with something that will, I don't know, like that you could have as your career, or that you could change the world with by like, it might not exist yet. And, the guys the Wright brothers, like when they had their first flight, that was something that was never done before. Like a tube going through the air, carrying loads of passengers. Like imagine.
So look at Elon Musk, like how many times has he failed?
Yeah, exactly.
I find him very, very inspirational. Now it's like talking, like I've seen a lot of his podcasts and his videos and his online stuff. It's like talking to a robot. Like the dude, like you just see him thinking all the time. But like how many spaceships how many rockets did he have blown up before he had this successful one there last week? Like, he was nearly on the face of bankruptcy and he kept going.
Yeah.
Like you have to take a lot. Like you have to look fear and dead straight in the face and say, well, not today, pal. I'm going to keep plowing through. You've got to have a lot of self-belief in yourself. And
that's true.
I think if you find yourself, and if you give yourself a little bit of time, and to be fair, now this pandemic, going into it, I felt myself burnt out. Coming out of it now, very, very soon, where everything will get back to normal, I definitely feel a lot better about myself, because I was able to actually sit down and go, well, hang on a second. All them things I used to do, I don't want to do anymore. And I've turned around and I've gone, well, look, I started a local radio station upstairs in the attic, basically. I've done it, and I've said, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And thankfully it's taken on. People are still listening to everything I have to say, which is fantastic. Thank you to everybody who's listening. But I found it then to sort of have, we're a small town, but we still haven't got a clue what's going on, and it's fantastic that like, you've headed off to Berlin and stuff like that. And we're coming from small towns. So it's fantastic that even though you didn't do your Leaving Cert or you did your Leaving Cert, but you didn't get what you wanted and stuff like that, you still managed to make it to Berlin. So people don't need to focus on the Leaving Cert so much all the time. You just need to find yourself. You just need to get confidence in yourself. You just need to plow forward. And there's a lot of plowing forward. You got to be like, there was an interesting point there. Sometimes you got to be like a snowplow. You got to build your own road. You got to plow through. There's a lot of shit either side of it. If you look either side, you're snowed in. But if you just go straight and plow through, now there's a lot of ignorance in it, but if you plow straight through, you will get to the end of your road, and it will be
Yeah.
a lot better for yourself. So
Yeah.
right, we gotta get back onto that topic. We took a massive U-turn there. We've gone from social media to leaving cert, and practically nothing what we said we were going to talk about tonight. But anyway, that's how things go. We have conversations, and hopefully we can help out anybody who's listening. And
Oh God.
the one thing I can turn around and say to people is talk. That is the only thing I can do, is talk, because you might feel like you're the only person with this problem right now, but I can guarantee you're not the only person. So you got to talk. Everybody's got to talk. It's the easiest way. A problem shared is a problem halved, in my mind. And that's what I think everybody needs to do. And if you had a chance to do that during this pandemic, look at your life and see where you want to go.
Yeah.
You might not necessarily be in the job you want. You might not necessarily be in the career you want, but give yourself time and find ways around it, and you will eventually get there.
That's like such an amazing point about like what you said about coming out and really like feeling like you've done a lot. And I feel similarly that I've had a lot of time to do a lot of my own stuff, like, my career coaching stuff and some writing. And more than anything, I have literally spent hours on YouTube looking at everything and anything. One of the days I spent ages looking at the history of Berlin, and I did the history of Ireland, and like all these different things. So with this whole conversation that we're having about the leaving cert and everything, you can become super smart. You can educate yourself by watching YouTube, and you have it at your fingertips. And you can literally, I used to hate when people said this, that you can do whatever you want in your life, but you really can. You really can. And it's about it's about the choices that you make, and it's about where you focus your energy. And as you said, rightly so, like really believing in yourself, because when you look at how many times J.K. Rowling got rejected from like 50 publishers before she published Harry Potter, and look at her now, she's like laughing on her throne. She's a millionaire. And then you have Oprah, who got fired because she wasn't fit for television, and look at her now. So there's so many inspirational people that we should be looking to and thinking, this is like super inspiring. And I feel like when I look at people like this, and when I learn about people, these are the influencers for me. These are the people that actually tell a really good story, and that like ignite my fire, and they make me think like, yeah, this is something that I can do. And that, like, in relation to the mental health thing, I think that finding yourself and finding something that you love doing is such an amazing thing for your mental health. And finding a creative outlet, even if it's not something that you can do with your job, finding a way to be creative, even if no one reads it, write stuff down, like start to write stories, start drawing. You might think to yourself, oh no, I can't do that. I'm not a writer. I'm not good at that. I used to say that to myself. And like so many people, I'm sure, have done the same thing, where they just started one day and then they just couldn't stop. So try new things. And like, another really big thing that I just feel like is really important to mention is be really careful of your alcohol consumption, especially at the moment. And for me, I found, and I think it's a very, like, culturally with Irish people, it's a very big thing to be, on the piss, and we're always talking about going for drinks.
We have to be very careful now, because I own a pub, so we have to be very careful here.
Be very careful. But if you do drink, only go to the cozy cabin. So, no, but for sure, like at the moment, I think I spoke to a few friends, and some people are like, "Oh, I'm drinking heaps of wine," and just be very mindful, because I think a lot of people don't know that it causes like really bad anxiety, and that's why I haven't been drinking that much through the pandemic. Now I got absolutely flaming about a week ago, but other than that, I have been really mindful, because I wake up and I have the actual fear, and it's very. If you look into the effects of alcohol, there's a book called The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober and The Sober Diaries, I think. They're really good books to educate you on what it actually does to your brain, and it's quite scary. So just like, please, in moderation, and I promise it will improve your mental health. I just had to say that.
But definitely, even water does it. Do you know what I mean? Like, being correctly hydrated it can change your life completely. Have a little bit of water.
Which is what I was drinking. I'm trying to stay off the booze for a while again.
Being fancy with the fancy glass, with the cocktail glass.
Oh yeah, it's a bit fancy. I can't sleep though if I love a glass of red wine, and I literally can't sleep. And sleep to me is like the most important part of my day.
Yeah. Do you know, actually, speaking of that now, we will move on to the actual topics that we had you on for, right? We are going to get you job advice. We are going to get you CV advice. We are going to get you some other little bits of nuggets of information. The best way I've ever learned how to go to sleep, again, YouTube. I'm telling you, I would have got 700 points in my leaving cert if YouTube was alive when I was growing in school. I would have just been like, I have no idea. Just Google search that. You know what I mean? Everything's there. Like you said, it's so easy to be whatever you want. All you gotta do is learn. What was I going? I had something to say there now and I forgot it. No, it's gone from my head. See that?
Were you going to say that we have to wrap up and continue another time? Because I feel like we've rocked on for an hour and a half, and people are probably like, they need to shut up.
Yeah, we need to shut up. I know, to be fair, now we're getting lots of comments and everyone's looking and everyone's liking it. So to be fair, everybody seems to think.
I see one from Lisa Marie Marin, who I love dearly. We used to work.
Yes, you've got loads of well done Amy's. We've got hearts and everything.
Do we have any abuse? I wouldn't like that now at all.
Huh?
Oh. I said, do we have any abuse? I wouldn't like that at all. But look,
no, there's no abuse. This is a positive area. It's a positive area. Remember that. Yeah, we've got loads. Well said, Amy. Tree so many. Where we've got, we've Lisa Marie's. We've got one from Neil saying hello. Hearts from, I won't even try to say this lady's name because I'll definitely get it wrong. Asil, yeah.
Thanks, Habibi.
She's saying hello as well. So everybody has hopefully enjoyed our chat anyway. And like I said, this is how conversations, and you were all so worried about doing this with me earlier. And I told you it'd be nice and simple. You didn't have to worry. See?
What if I say the wrong thing? God knows I'm so liable to say anything. But I do, just in relation, because I did really want people to kind of come away with, something about their job search.
About the job search. Yeah, we have to actually do this. We have to do 5 minutes. We'll get this. Come on.
Oh my God, my absolutely wonderful manager called Kathy just commented, Kathy. She's Irish, which is just divine, obviously. But
now she's watching, so you have to give useful information.
Now I can't say anything bad. I hate
No.
Okay, so just in relation to the job stuff, because I do want people to. It's it can be a very tricky process for many people. And I think often people don't know where to start. And I recently did a blog post. I have a blog called The Good Voice, but I also, if you go onto that website, you can see a link to my careers blog, which I've only just started, but it basically gives you some tips around building your CV and how to do a good interview is one that I'm working on at the moment. So I'll probably share that next week. But
and we'll post it. We'll make sure that all your links get posted underneath this as well. So if you're all worried about the information, Amy will post it and then we will repost it underneath. So we'll have everything. We'll have, hopefully, I'm saying hopefully now because I got to learn how to do all this video editing and stuff, and learning how to be a YouTube star. I got to figure out how to put the videos.
I don't want to see a picture of you in your bikini.
Jesus,
don't do that to me. I'll unfollow you.
We've got Andrea Hunt saying hello. Andrea, how are you? See, this is opening doors. We could nearly have a class reunion. Everybody going here. We've got, hold on a second. What was I saying there? Oh, yeah. We're going to make sure all the information under this video when we sort of polish it up and stuff like that. We've got Sean from Ace Media who's doing all our editing. So he's really good. He's a really, really talented young fella. He's absolutely top notch. So he puts all our videos together. So when we post it, we will have all the links to all of your blogs and stuff like that. So people will be able to find the information. All right. Amazing. So you won't have to worry about it. We know we didn't really touch on it, but all the information is coming up. We'll make sure that you have your CV blog. We'll make sure that it's the Happy Voice. Is that what it is?
The Good Voice.
The Good Voice, like The Good Wife. That was a great TV show.
Yeah.
The Good Voice, we'll make sure there's a link for that as well. So everybody is listening. Although we didn't take it, we took a massive U-turn on how we talk things. I hope you've managed to find some bit of useful information. But we'll just make sure, you can touch it now. We might as well explain it to everybody else. But we'll make sure that all the information is going to be under this video. So you can head away there and talk and tell us all about CV building and stuff like that gently. You don't have to go into too much depth now, so you can be.
I'll try and summarize it so that I'm like not keeping people up all night. But there's so much to it, to be honest. But the thing is to remember is I would say just starting off is you need to manage it like a process, this job search. And your CV is something that you should always be referring to, always be updating, always be looking at. So make sure it's in. So Leanne, Joey's girlfriend, who I absolutely adore with all my heart, she told me about this platform called Canva. And it kind of changed my life because now I do anything to do with my blog or anything, I use Canva. It's
CA. I use that for. How do you think I built all this behind it?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's like life-changing. So Leanne
And it's
opened my
free
eyes
for
to
most
this.
of it.
Yeah, it's pretty much all free. So I've made all my logos and everything like that from Canva. And my CV, I joined one company in Berlin, and then I wanted to move. So I did it through Canva. And people sometimes think that they need to send you like their absolute whole life story and whole, every single bit of their experience. You don't. You need to have a nicely laid out CV. You need to make sure that the bullet points are very clear. Like, I mean, this goes without saying, but things need to be spelled correctly. You need to have proper grammar. You need to have all of your bullet points and everything, like full stops, format needs to be uniform the whole way through the CV. You can do it. You can build one very easily on Canva. I guess the most important thing is that it is a marketing tool for you. Your CV is going to be the golden ticket to get you the interview. So it has to stand out, and you need to really think about how you come across. So you need to do it, and you need to then, look at it as if you were the employer. Mm-hmm. It's hard there's so much to it, and there's so many things to take into consideration. So I'm just trying to summarize. But one of the most important things that I learned is when you're putting your responsibilities on your CV, you need to make them achievements focused. So you need to focus on the things that you did that added value in your role now or your previous role. And you need to focus on, what value did I add to my company? And you can do this quantitatively. So you can say, me as a recruiter, I saved my last company X amount of money, which they would have spent on agencies. But because I was the internal recruiter, I was able to save them this amount of money. And when you're thinking about it like that, and you're actually showing the company that you're thinking about the bottom line, and you're thinking about, like from a financial point of view, you're adding value. And when you use quantitative information, it's very tangible. So the person can clearly see this person added value here. I can see measurable numbers. I can see, tangible information. I can see how they did in comparison to their peers. So maybe if you're in sales, you can say, I achieved 103% of my goal last year in comparison to, my peers where only 40% of people even hit goal. Like something like that, where you're actually kind of you're showing how you compare to everyone else. Really showing things like that is super important. Don't put all of your jobs on there. Put the last maybe 2 or 3 roles. I would go back maybe the last 6 to 8 years, no more than that. People only want to see what you've done more recently. Mm-hmm. Another important thing for your CV is to show progression. So maybe you've worked in Tesco for the last 5 years, but you started as a sales assistant, and then you got promoted to a supervisor, and then you got promoted to a manager. Now, if you just have manager on your CV for the last 8 years that you were at Tesco, and you're not explaining that you've actually got promoted mm-hmm. within those 8 years twice, then people are going to assume, oh, this person went in as a manager and has been in the same role for 8 years and they never got promoted. So they've not progressed at mm-hmm. all in their career. So, that in itself is a red flag for recruiters and for hiring managers. They need to see that you've progressed and you've been promoted and you've moved up in the ranks. And people do take things like that into consideration. In my last company in London, one of the hiring managers who had a lot of experience hiring told me that he only has to look at the first word on your responsibilities section, and he can then that determines what sort of person you are. By what you've how you've constructed the whole, what you've written about what you've been doing, and also just you want to give information, you want to give points about what you've done. They don't need to be too long. You need to kind of give some context, because when I see things like, was in charge of cash flow or whatever, you need to add some real context, and the summary section people don't really read. If you do have a covering letter, to be honest, not a lot of people really use them anymore. If you do want one, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs is okay. And if you really want to work for a company and a job, cater your CV and your covering letter towards that company and that job. So take things from the job spec that you can do and draw that out of your CV. So you're it takes time, but this is like potentially the job of your dreams, so it's worth the time
You're
invested.
sharpshooting the interview, basically.
Well, kind of. So you're like, I definitely would never say don't lie on your CV, whatever you do, because you will get found out, and it makes you just look like not a very honest person, and no one wants to hire a dishonest person. But draw out things that are related to these skills that the requirements that this person for the company is looking for, this recruiter is looking for. So that's another thing to bear in mind, is really tailoring it. And, you know, for example, if I work for a software company called ThoughtWorks, and if we have a very big emphasis on corporate or on social justice, as I mentioned before. I did that interview, and that was like really quite extraordinary to me. And, you know, when I receive CVs from, like, in my current role, and I see people acknowledging things that we do as a company, like we provide or create very high quality software, and when I can kind of see that people have gone the extra mile to not just look at our website, but really dig deep into what we offer and what we do and our social justice agenda, like how we feel about that, I really feel like, okay, this person has done their research, and, you know, it will make me think twice about them, and it will make them stand out to me. And people always wonder, like, what's it like as a recruiter? What sort of things do you think when you see a CV? On average, a recruiter spends 6 seconds reviewing CVs, like 6 seconds scanning through, and you're looking at different things. You're looking at the job title, you're looking at the company, you're looking at, you know, the responsibilities, you're having a scan of that, you're looking at the education, perhaps maybe they need to speak German in my case sometimes. I would avoid putting anything on it that can potentially, you know, where someone can, I mean, in an ideal world, this won't happen, but of course this happens in real life. So if you don't want to be discriminated against, so you don't need to put things like your age, you know, whether you're single or married, things like that, you don't need to put in. I would advise putting in if you're like a UK or an Irish citizen, or you're an Irish passport holder or a German passport holder. I think that's important, so that the person knows what your eligibility would be to work in that country. But of course, then you have the people do still discriminate, unfortunately, on people's names, which is something you can't avoid, which is obviously terrible, but it's the world we live in. Yeah. So just being mindful about things like that. Like, you don't need to overshare. I would just put your email address, where you're based, the city that you're based in, nothing else. You don't need your address. And then what I have on my CV is I have an about me section, and to be honest, it took up like the same amount of space as my responsibilities for my last 2 roles did. I only had my last 2 roles on my CV when I was applying for ThoughtWorks. And the about me section was just a bit of information about me, like where I'm from and what I enjoy, things about, I had a favorite book section, which, you know, was interesting for the interview, because then one of my interviewers was asking me about it. And I think it's really nice to have a section about me, like a really authentic one, where you're not just like enjoys traveling and something else. Just
reading books, listening to music. Yeah,
music and travel.
Course,
we all love music and travel. I mean, I absolutely love music. It makes the world go round. But I think that really having a bit of authenticity is going to be important. I would definitely recommend having a LinkedIn profile, and all the stuff that you have on your CV, put that on your LinkedIn, and make sure that your LinkedIn reads well. Make sure that you're adding to it, like keep it, you know, it's a quite a user-friendly, LinkedIn is like a user-friendly program, I guess you could call it. So it does prompt you to fill out certain things, but keeping that up to date, that's where a lot of recruiters search, is on LinkedIn. And maybe you want to put, it's very easy to do this, put that you're open if you want to move somewhere, like you want to move to London or wherever in the world, you can just put that you're open to relocating. You can apply for roles in different locations. I mean, I can't really remember how. I think networking is another really big thing, and don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask them for help. If someone comes to me and asks me to help them, I love the idea of them trying to help themselves and trying to better themselves. So I will always, like, of course, I need to have time to do it. And when I have time, of course, I will help anyone, because I really want people to be able to get the jobs that they want. I want them. That's why I do these blogs. I want people to be in good jobs with nice companies and nice managers, because I am so happy and so grateful that I have that for myself. And not everyone has that. And I have worked for some awful managers before who are just bullies. And like, it's so sad. Why do they have such egos? I don't know. But anyway, it's like, no. So everyone deserves to have a good job that they really enjoy going to. They like going to their office or wherever they work. And they feel good about the people that they're around. The interview process, again, do a lot of preparation. Go armed to the interview with questions that are good, not just what's the progression. Like, that is like, try and imagine what a normal question would be, and just know that everyone asks those questions. So try and be authentic again. Ask questions about, so if I was thinking about this example, like, if I went and I was interviewing at, let's say, Nike, they did this campaign recently with this person with a prosthetic leg. And I use this example in my blog because I just think if I was, let's say, interviewing for Nike, I would talk about that campaign and talk about how that made me feel. And it was the same when I was at ThoughtWorks and I was doing my interviews, and I was thinking, I was doing a lot of research, and I dropped that into the conversation so that they knew I had really, really done extensive research on the company. And so that that the person that's interviewing knows that you are serious about this and that you're not wasting their time. You really want to be there. You've put in the work. This is hard for me, and this is hard for Irish people in general, but try and be concise and try and be aware when someone asks you a question like, oh, can you tell me a bit about yourself? So having a pitch about yourself pre-prepared is very important, because you need to really, this is where you set the tone of the interview. So you need to really, really kind of show them what you're made of. And it can be, I personally say, to make it a bit personal and make it a little bit to do with your career as well. And they've asked you for like a short summary usually. So keep it kind of brief. Just say, look, so my name's Amy. I'm originally from Ireland. I moved to Berlin like a year ago. I've been working in recruiting for the last 7 years. I've progressed through a couple of different industries. And now in the last 3 years, I've been working for tech companies, and I've been hiring X, Y, and Z. The reason that I applied for this role was because, I've seen what your company is doing, and I can see that, you're really passionate about delivering software excellence, and also, creating a change and challenging the status quo and demanding social justice. And that's like super important to me and really what I stand for. And things like that, like when you then take the lead and you say, this is why I've applied for the role, this is why I've decided to, go and do this. And a lot of people get nervous about saying, if someone says, why are you looking to leave? I mean, there's lots of, I always would be honest, but I would never be negative about your last role. Like, you can say, I have always been relatively honest, and it's never had, I don't think, had a negative impact. I don't think, but I don't, maybe it has behind like closed doors. But I think that, yes, be honest, but don't dwell on the situation. You can say, I'm with a company, there's a lack of direction, or I'm not aligned to the values of the company anymore. I've just reflected and I just don't feel like it's the place for me. That is absolutely fine. But definitely don't be like, oh my God, my boss
was an asshole.
Person, and she's so mean to me, and she's always bullying me around the place and telling me that I'm not worthy and all these things. Like, no, you just don't need to go into detail. You just say, I'm not like really enjoying it anymore, and I'm maybe not challenged, and you just want a change of scenery. Enough. So the interview process typically is like 3 stages. First stage is with a recruiter like me, who assesses you more on usually a cultural fit, or sometimes we have certain attributes that we're looking for. And that we will be looking to like just assess, but it's not as technical. And usually the second stage is a bit more technical, and you meet with the hiring manager. And then you have to, like, I always say that there's only going to be a certain amount of questions asked to you. They're all going to kind of have the same narrative. They're going to be looking for the same sort of things. So if you go prepared, if you really want that job, you go prepared with different scenarios of examples that you can give. So they're more often than not going to ask you about, give me an example of a time where maybe something went wrong, or maybe, you made a mistake, or when you had a really difficult stakeholder or a difficult person that you had to deal with, and how did you kind of like deal with that situation. And what they want to hear is how you are in a difficult situation, how you handle it. Like, do you communicate with the person that you're dealing with? Do you talk to them about why, let's say it's a difficult stakeholder, you know, and you're trying to do a project with them, and then you need to reemphasize to them why this project is important, and this is how it will benefit them, and this is how it will benefit the company. And you kind of always have to be thinking about the bigger picture. So they will be asking you questions, and I've heard people asking some really wacky questions, like how many tennis balls can you fit in the Olympic Stadium in London, and things like that. But what they're doing there is looking at and assessing how you figure things out. Like, you don't have to have a knee-jerk reaction. It's okay to just say, in fact, it's better to just say, look, I just need to think about that for a second. Okay. Okay. And bring a notepad, write things down, really listen. Active listening is really important. And if you don't understand a question or you don't understand something, don't just jump in and answer. Just say, oh, I actually didn't really understand what you mean. Can you repeat the question? That shows that you're kind of assertive, and that you're quite like, you're not just going to hear something and just assume. You're actually going to question the question, and you're going to think and ask, like, okay, I really need to understand this now. And it's people like that, I don't know, it's just people like that actually just really want to be clear on things. And my understanding is that you want me to talk about X, Y, and Z. Okay, fine. And that is really impactful. And those are things that they will assess you on. And then going with questions, as I said before, is super important. You know, like, really think about this and ask people in the industry. If you want to be a marketing manager, go out and find other people in the industry or network, and find other marketing managers. Even if you don't know them, maybe contact them on LinkedIn. People will be more than happy to help, because I think people love getting, it's also quite flattering if someone came to me and said, I really want to get into recruiting, blah, blah, blah. I would love to give them help and to put them on the right track, because, and I really love this saying, and I'm not religious, but God helps those that help themselves. It's the most true saying. Like, and I know that's been kind of our theme for the whole conversation, but it's so true. And I think that, you know, being bold, asking for help, asking for someone's advice is I thought that's so good for you. And you never know, like, maybe they might know someone, or they might connect you to someone, or, you know, that's, I think, a really good thing to do, and a really good way to approach it.
And having the confidence to ask is like having the confidence to turn around and ask an actual question. Like, some people be afraid to go, I came out of that interview and I hadn't a clue what they were saying to me. And like, I would much, excuse me, I would much rather if I was doing an interview as an employer, now I haven't employed ever that many people, but if as an employer, I would much rather if they had turned around and said to me, okay, what do you mean by that? Because there's no point me saying something to an employee, them not knowing what it is, them going off spending 6 hours doing the job, them wasting their 6 hours, wasting my 6 hours and paying them, and I still don't have the job done in the start. I would much prefer someone turn around to me and say, hang on a second, Terence, please tell me what you need. Now, I'm very blunt and I'm very black and white anyway, but you have to be, I would much more respect a person that came to me and said, right, what exactly are you wanting me to do here? And then I'll go off in my head going, well, hang on a second, this person, this lady, man, whatever, can turn around and ask me questions, get exactly what I want. And if he can do it to the T, then hired. Do you know? It's that simple to me, in my mind. Right.
No,
we're up to nearly 2 hours.
Yeah, I think
we're going to finish up. We're going to finish up. But before we do it, we have a thing that we do. It's 10 questions in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Right? So they're really fast, rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Right. So we get all our guests to do it. So don't worry. I have them prepared this week. I didn't have them prepared last week because everything went down on me last week trying to do this. I'm telling you, I'm Googling the shit out of everything trying to learn how to do this. So I'm ready. Right. So we're exactly 2 hours and 15 seconds now. Right. So you ready?
Yeah. Ready.
Amy Weidner, here is our 30 seconds on cabin fever. Right. Phone call or text message?
Text message. Who rings people these days? No.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, The Pursuit of Happiness.
Love that movie. Great movie.
Yeah, amazing.
McDonald's or Burger King?
Oh, McDonald's. God, Burger King is rank.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
Oh, I'm a 10,
Quick.
but my family will all be like, oh my God, they'll remember the time you crashed because you were eating crisps. Yeah. I'm a 10.
The strangest place you've made a phone call.
On the toilet? I don't know. Yeah.
The person you'd have to dinner, dead or alive.
What? Say that again?
The person who you'd have for dinner, dead or alive.
Oh, Michael Jackson.
Ketchup in the fridge, outside the fridge.
Outside.
Live forever or have the power of invisibility.
Oh.
Quick.
Live forever.
Do you eat soup or drink it?
Fuck. Eat. Drink. I don't know.
What is the worst?
That's so stressful.
What is the one thing in the world that annoys you the most? Quick.
Oh, people that 3 friends that walk across the footpath really slow and they're just picking the whole thing up.
Amy Weidner, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been great fun. And I told you it would be absolutely amazing fun. And it's been super. Thank you so much. We will make sure that we stay in touch. We make sure that you get all your information shared across our platforms. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Amazing.